There's a lot of talk about the Gulf of Mexico and the 5-year leasing plan. And so I'd like to share with you a little bit of information. This resolution basically is in support of that. It does several things. It highlights the importance of the oil and gas industry to our state and our country. It urges and requests that the President and the Congress take all action necessary to halt federal actions that delay or cancel offshore oil and gas lease sales. It urges the Department of Interior to expedite actions to comply with a court order to resolve the recently held lease sale. And it asks that we finalize a new 5-year plan for oil and gas leasing in the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information. First of all, why is the oil and gas industry important to our country? Well, first and foremost, we have the ability in the United States to be energy independent. Our country has the God-given natural resources to meet the fuel and electricity needs of our citizens and to provide the lifestyle that our citizens demand with plastics, medicines, fertilizers, and other products that are fundamental to our everyday needs. Fossil fuels will be a significant contributor to our energy needs for the foreseeable future while we build capacity with additional forms of energy. Currently, the Gulf of Mexico produces about 17% of the U.S. crude and 5% of the U.S. natural gas for our country. The Gulf of Mexico contributes $5 billion to $8 billion to the Federal Registry every year, the second largest line item in the federal budget behind the IRS income tax line item. Why is this industry so important to Louisiana? Well, first of all, it supports 250,000 jobs in our state. It creates 26% of our state's gross domestic product. It adds $4.5 billion in annual state and local tax revenue. The royalties on production from the Gulf of Mexico is the primary source of funding for our state's coastal restoration program through GOMESA. So what's the big problem with the 5-year plan? Well, since 1953, the U.S. Secretary of the Interior has been required by law to prepare a 5-year plan to schedule leases for oil and gas leasing in the United States. These plans basically allow operators to submit sealed bids in specific areas of the Gulf of Mexico that will give them the right to drill wells, to build platforms and facilities, to lay the pipelines, and establish production within the 5 to 10 years or surrender the lease. It's worth noting, and I experienced this in my professional career, that energy companies quite often do not even have the technology to develop these leases at the time that they submit the bid. So within the 5 to 10 year term of the lease, they are basically betting on the fact that they are smart enough to develop the technology to overcome the water depths or the temperature or the pressures of the wells that they're drilling. And they're willing to invest billions of dollars on the front end to do that. The last 5-year plan was authorized by the Obama administration and expires this July 1st. The Biden administration has already missed the deadlines for the remaining lease sales in that 5-year plan, and they don't appear to be planning for any future sales. Furthermore, on January 27th of 2021, a mere 7 days after the Biden inauguration, the president signed an executive order declaring a pause on leasing in the federal land and waters, including the Gulf of Mexico. The lease sale that was planned by the Trump administration was held, the very last one, it was held on November 17th of 2021. There were 317 bids submitted by 33 companies for a total of $199 million. It was the largest offshore oil and gas lease sale in the nation's history. Unfortunately, a court invalidated the sale based on their belief that the Department of Interior did not properly assess the environmental impacts of the lease sale. Not only did this action reveal the proprietary work that the successful bidders had done, but it destroyed any stability or predictability in the offshore leasing program, causing oil and gas operators to stall or stop future investment decisions in the Gulf of Mexico, putting our nation's energy security in jeopardy. So without the certainty of a 5-year Gulf of Mexico plan, here's what I believe will happen. Production will continue to decline rapidly from the existing wells without increased production from new wells. Our country's energy security is at risk, making us dependent on unfriendly OPEC countries and other countries such as Iran, Venezuela, and Russia that can both control supply, reliability, and price. Greenhouse gas emissions will continue to increase due to energy being supplied by coal-producing countries and other oil-producing countries with less concern for the environment. Our coastal restoration efforts in Louisiana will evaporate, and we will continue to lose coastline at alarming rates. We'll continue to lose jobs to neighboring Texas with an active onshore program. And lastly, I think gasoline prices will continue to be high, resulting in higher prices for groceries and other commodities. And so it is for these reasons, Mr. Chairman, that I bring this resolution, again, asking the President and Congress to renew their efforts for a 5-year plan and to straighten up the last lease sale where they basically invalidated the results of that last lease sale.
And Senator, correct me if I'm wrong, but the announcement last week regarding federal lands and leases on federal lands did not include offshore leases, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I double-checked all that this morning. It's onshore. That all dealt with onshore leases, which does not affect this resolution, or the majority of our benefit is from the Gulf of Mexico and Louisiana.
Thank you. I have a question from Representative Reiser.
Senator, I've kept up a little bit on the leasing and stuff. So there is no leases that's up for my understanding in the Gulf. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Only the ones that are existing. Are they messing, or are they trying to impede the ones the leases have already been issued now?
No, they're not. I mean, except for the most recent one that was held in November of 21. So what happened there is, with the way these lease sales happen, you submit like a sealed bid. Mm-hmm. So nobody knows what anybody else is bidding on. And then they open them up all on one day and they say, okay, you're the high bidder on this lease and you're the high bidder on that lease. And then they get awarded. Well, what happened is they opened them all up, and then the federal government invalidated the whole thing. So now, if you were the successful bidder on a particular lease, everybody in the industry now knows what you thought it was worth. Right, they know the area that you're interested in. Correct. And now it's so unfair to those companies that did the geologic work, the technical work, and put a value on that opportunity. So that's kind of frozen right now. That is an issue. And then going forward, there are no more lease sales on the calendar. Everything that was leased previous to that under the old administration, that's all, active. So those companies that have leases, they have a 5 to 10 year term, and they're able to drill and continue their plans. But it has created so much uncertainty in the industry that it's caused everybody to pull back, because you don't ever know what the administration's going to do tomorrow.
And that's the point I want to make, those that we've seen. When was it 09 somewhere we saw some of that. Without stability, those that own the rigs will take them somewhere else on the globe, because there's so much money they have invested where they're going to take it where they know the rig's going to work. So if it's just a short period of time, they've got to go where they know they can debt service the payments they have. So that's a problem within itself. Just the fact that they've limited it and put a short duration causes people to take their equipment elsewhere.
100%. And you are right. We've seen that in the past.
And we've seen them pull rigs up and leave and go somewhere else on the globe for that very reason.
Yes, indeed. The companies need stability. They need predictability. These are long-term projects. You don't just turn them on and off with a switch. Mm-hmm. And so they're making decisions today, and you're not going to get production. If you're a world-class operator, you're not going to get production for 5 years.
Correct.
So it's
Well-
not something you can just sort of willy-nilly manage. We need to have a longer-term view of this industry, and the leasing program is the way to do that.
Well, thank you for keeping the public attention on that, and we will continue with our pressure. Mr. Chairman, I move the favorable on this at the appropriate time.
What we need in Louisiana, and what I think our country needs, is an all-of-the-above energy strategy. But we are not at a point where you can kneecap the oil and gas industry. We are working together on carbon sequestration projects, hydrogen projects. Louisiana is going to be a leader. We have wind and solar bills that have been proposed in this legislature. We're working to develop other forms of energy, but continuing the leasing program for fossil fuels is critical. Not only is it going to provide the fuel that we need in the future, but all of the other things that cannot be provided by other renewable sources, all of the chemicals and the medicines and the plastics and the things that we're used to as part of our lifestyle, those are only going to come from fossil fuels. And so we need stability in this industry. We need an administration at the federal level that supports it. And I would like to see our legislature weigh in on that, and to let our congressman and our president know how important this industry is to our state.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table to report SCR 12 favorably by Representative Reiser. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, SCR 12 moves favorably.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Thank
Senator.
you, members.